Good morning, dear students. Today we are concerned with the anatomy of interior of the skull base. That too, today we are mainly concerned with the anterior cranial fossa. As you used to see, there is a natural demarcations are present on the interior aspect of the skull. That is an anterior demarcated line present and posterior demarcated line present. So the structure which are present anterior to that of an anterior demarcated line, that used to call as anterior cranial fossa, and just posterior to that of the anterior demarcated line and anterior to that of a posterior demarcated line, that used to call as a middle cranial fossa, and just posterior to that of a posterior demarcated line, that used to call as posterior cranial fossa. So it is a very basic concept running behind that is that that brain is present in a brain is situated in this cranial fossa, and that brain used to be gives attachment to the cranial nerves, and the cranial nerves used to be passes from the interior aspect to the exterior aspect to the sublunar. So what the structures used to be forms that foramina, or what are the structures that passes through that of the specific foramina, that is the most important aspect that we have to discuss. So today we are concerned only with the anterior cranial fossa, what the structures are present in the anterior cranial fossa, what are the foramina are present, and what their contents are there. So let's start. First, introduction of the interior of the base of the skull. It is the base of a skull, that is calvaria minus skull cap. If you used to minus the skull cap from the calvaria, that is the base of a skull that you are seeing in the picture form, which is observed from inside, or it is also known as a cranial cavity, and which lodges the brain parts. The subdivisions of the interior of the base of the skull. Internal surface of the base of the skull is naturally demarcated into three fossae, which are known as anterior cranial fossa, that you are seeing to the anterior demarcated line. Then there is that is the anterior cranial fossa, middle cranial fossa, and posterior cranial fossa. If you used to see in a picture, that is the anterior cranial fossa which is present anterior to that of a anterior demarcated line, and there is a middle cranial fossa. This is the middle cranial fossa which is situated anterior to that of a posterior demarcated line and posterior to that of an anterior demarcated line. In between to that the fossa is present. That fossa is called middle cranial fossa. And third is a posterior cranial fossa. This is the posterior cranial fossa. This posterior cranial fossa is a whole of the structure which is situated just posterior to that of a posterior demarcated line. This is the posterior cranial fossa. So today we are concerned with the anterior cranial fossa only. What the structures are present in that, what its contents are there. So anterior cranial fossa, boundaries, what the structures used to be forms the boundary of the anterior cranial fossa. So anteriorly and laterally it is bounded by frontal bone. If you used to see that blinking line is being seen, this used to be forms the anterolateral boundary of anterior cranial fossa. Then posteriorly, this is complete as a posterior boundary present. So posteriorly it is first it is bounded by posterior border of lesser wing of sphenoid bone. This is the posterior border of lesser wing of the sphenoid bone. Then there is a anterior clinoid processes. These are the anterior, that blinking line that you are seeing. These are the anterior clinoid processes and the anterior margin of sulcus chiasmaticus. So this is the anterior margin of sulcus chiasmaticus. This is the sulcus for the chiasma of the optic nerve present, and just this is the anterior margin of sulcus chiasmaticus. So anterolaterally it is bounded by a frontal bone that is present, then posteriorly by posterior border of a lesser wing of the sphenoid bone, then anterior clinoid plates and the anterior margin of sulcus chiasmaticus. These are the boundaries of the anterior cranial fossa. Now what the structures used to be forms the floor of the anterior cranial fossa. So that floor, we have divided the floor into the two parts, median region and the lateral region. So first we will discuss about the median region. So median region, anteriorly it is bounded by Cribriform plate of ethmoid bone, and posteriorly by anterior part of a superior surface of body of sphenoid bone, and that anterior part of a superior surface of body of sphenoid bone is also known as Jugum sphenoidal. So just you are seeing the structure in the blinking area. This is the Cribriform plate of a ethmoid bone, and this is the Jugum sphenoidal. These two structures used to be form median region of a floor of the anterior cranial fossa. Next, Anterior cranial fossa boundaries, that's the floor area, lateral region. So laterally, that is bounded by orbital plate of a frontal bone. This is completely being seen as the orbital plate of the frontal bone. The structures, that's a completely, it is a bounded structure present. This is a blinking areas that you are seeing. This is the orbital plate of a frontal bone. If you used to see in the orbital plate of a frontal bone, actually this orbital plate of a frontal bone used to be separates anterior lobe or the frontal lobe of a brain from the orbital cavity. Posteriorly, it is bounded by lesser wing of the sphenoid bone. This is the complete as the lesser wing of sphenoid bone. Next content is the frontal crest. It is a median crest in an anterior wall of the fossa. This is the median crest present in an anterior wall of a fossa. It provides attachment to falx cerebri. Falx cerebri is a anteriorly it is a present structure, and it is actually extension of a dura mater, which used to be, it is a sickle shaped extension of the dura mater, which used to be separates the both the frontal lobes of the both cerebral hemispheres anteriorly. Next is a CRISTA galli. CRISTA galli, it is a upward tooth-like projection in the midline just behind the frontal crest. So this is the frontal crest present. This is the frontal crest area is, and this one is the CRISTA galli. So it is a upward tooth-like projection in the midline just behind the frontal crest is. This projection also receives the attachment of anterior end of falx cerebri. Next structure is the foramen cecum. This is the foramen cecum, that blinking area that you used to see. It is present just between the CRISTA galli and the crest of the frontal bone. So this is the CRISTA galli structure is, and this is the your crest of the frontal bone. In between to that, there is a foramen is present. That foramen is called the foramen cecum. It is an inconstant foramen, but if it present, it transmits the imagery veins, and these imagery veins actually joins the nasal cavity to the superior sagittal sinus. So next structure is the contents, that is anterior and posterior ethmoidal canals. Anterior ethmoidal canal, this is the anterior ethmoidal canal, this is the posterior ethmoidal canal. So anterior ethmoidal canal presents anterolateral to the cribriform plate of ethmoid bone. This is the cribriform plate of ethmoid bone. Anterolateral to that, there is a canal is present. That canal is called anterior ethmoidal canal, and that anterior ethmoidal canal is actually it used to be passes the structures to anterior ethmoidal nerves and vessels. Then there is a posterior ethmoidal canal. Posterior ethmoidal canal, it is present posterolateral to the cribriform plate of ethmoid bone. This posterior ethmoidal nerves and vessels passes through it. This is the posterior ethmoidal canal. This is the anterior ethmoidal canal. Anterior ethmoidal vessels and nerves passes through the anterior ethmoidal canal, and posterior ethmoidal nerves and vessels used to be passes to the posterior ethmoidal canal. And now the next, cribriform plate of ethmoid bone. This is as used to see completely. This is a cribriform plate of ethmoid bone. It is a perforated plate present. So it is a sleeve-like perforated bony plate present on each side of a CRISTA galli. In between the structure elevation is, that is a CRISTA galli. Just lateral to both sides to that of, there is a perforated plate is present. This perforated plate is called cribriform plate of ethmoid bone. With this cribriform plate of ethmoid bone, with this foramina, the small foramina are there. There are 15 to 20 filaments of olfactory nerve passes through it from the nasal mucosa to the olfactory bulb. Actually, just here at the level of the CRISTA galli, the bulb of the olfactory nerve, that is as a tract present. With that bulb, there is a small filaments are present. That small filaments used to be passes from the nasal mucosa to the olfactory bulb, and then olfactory bulb continues posteriorly as the olfactory nerve. Next is jugum sphenoidale. Jugum sphenoidale, it has an anterior margin meets the posterior margin of a cribriform plate of ethmoid bone. Posteriorly, it is limited by sulcus chiasmaticus. This is the sulcus chiasmaticus present. It separates the anterior cranial fossa from the two sphenoidal sinuses. This is the body of the sphenoid bone. Just inferior to the body of a sphenoid bone, there is the sphenoidal sinuses are present. So this used to be separates, this jugum sphenoidale used to be separates it from the sphenoidal sinuses. Next is the orbital plate of the frontal bone. Orbital plate of frontal bone. It is present just lateral to that of a cribriform plate of ethmoid bone. Each of the two orbital plates separates anteriorly anterior cranial fossa from the corresponding orbits. This is the important part, that the orbit is being separated from the anterior cranial fossa by these two orbital period. It shows the impressions for cerebral gyri. If you to see, there are the small impressions are present. These impressions are for cerebral gyri is there. It supports the orbital surface of the frontal bone of the cerebrum. Next is the lesser wing of sphenoid bone. That is the this is the blinking structure that you are seeing. This is the lesser wing of the sphenoid bone. That jugum is sphenoidal, continuous laterally with the lesser wing of the sphenoid bone. It is a broad medially and tapers laterally. If you used to see on a lateral side, it is a tapering structure is present. It is that used to be seems to be the broader structure on a medial aspect is. Posterior border of a lesser wing ends medially into the anterior clinoid processes, which receives the attachment of a free margin of tentorium cerebelli. Tentorium cerebelli is a structure, it is an extension of a durameter which separates the cerebellum from the inferior lobe, occipital lobe of the cerebrum posteriorly, and they are attached anteriorly with that of anterior clinoid processes. Thank you.